No one will help you, only you can. You sit there, waiting, hoping, wondering if someone, anyone, is going to come along and fix what's broken in you, but no one is coming, not the world, not your friends, not even your family. They might love you, they might try, but they cannot help you, not in the way you need. There's a moment that comes to every person, whether in quiet reflection or deep crisis, when they begin to see through the noise. The noise of blame, the noise of distraction, the noise of comfort that's been whispered to them for years, telling them it's okay, that they're not responsible, that someone else made them this way, or someone else ought to come fix it. But then the silence comes, and in that silence the truth begins to speak, not with comfort, not with softness, but with weight, with precision, and it doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It simply stands there, undeniable, and in the presence of that truth, you suddenly understand something that wrecks you in the best way possible. You are solely accountable. No one is coming to take the blame for you. No one is going to carry your consequences. You are the one standing in the light, and there's no one behind you to hide behind. You can feel it in your chest if you stop pretending. You know it's there. You know that all the choices you've made, the ones you try not to think about when you're lying awake at night, the ones that you excuse or soften or reframe, those choices didn't come from anyone else's hands. They came from yours. They were formed in the secret places of your mind and your will, and now they live in the outcomes you see around you. That relationship that broke down, that opportunity that slipped away, that pattern of anger or laziness or silence you keep falling into, you can trace it back. It didn't appear out of nowhere. It came from you, and the truth does not care how that feels. It only cares that you see it. But here's the thing, this isn't about shame. That's what people misunderstand. Accountability isn't shame, it's clarity, it's freedom. Because when you finally understand that you are solely accountable, you also begin to understand something else. You're not helpless. You're not stuck. You're not some powerless creature being dragged through life by circumstances. You have been given something terrifying and beautiful: choice, power, will, and for far too long, people have tried to give that power away to everyone else. My parents made me this way. My past is too heavy. The system is broken. I never had support. And maybe all those things are true in part. Maybe they shaped the setting of your story, but they didn't write your lines. You did, and that's the truth. You start to realize that every time you point the finger outward, you weaken your own soul. You diminish your ability to rise, because you've handed your agency over to someone or something that cannot and will not save you. There is no one else who can take your place in the decisions that define your life. You are the one who must rise early, who must wrestle through the doubt, who must speak when it would be easier to stay quiet, or walk away when your pride wants to stay. No one can do that for you. They can cheer you on. They can cry with you. They can even carry you for a moment, but not forever, not where it matters, not in the hidden places where integrity is born and discipline is formed. That ground is yours, and yours alone. This truth is hard. It burns a little when it touches you, especially if you've spent a lot of time running from it. But it also begins to burn away the lies. And you see yourself for what you truly are: not a victim, not a project, not a lost cause, but a human being capable of turning around, capable of owning your story, capable of changing. The truth doesn't offer you comfort first. It offers you responsibility. And if you can bear that, if you can carry it, you will find that it is not a burden after all, but a key. The key to every door you've been waiting for someone else to open. But you've got to stop waiting. You've got to stop making excuses. You've got to stop treating life like a rehearsal for something else, as if someday someone will hand you the version of your life you were supposed to have. That version doesn't exist. There is only the life you're living now, and the decisions you're making now, and the truth that is standing in front of you now. And that truth says this: you are responsible. Not just for what you do, but for what you become. And you will become something. That's the terrifying part. Time doesn't stop just because you're confused or uncertain or afraid. You're shaping something every single day. your character, your habits, your legacy. And if you don't take hold of that process, it doesn't pause. It just proceeds without your consent. You're accountable, whether you acknowledge it or not. You can deny it, but denial doesn't dissolve truth. It just delays you from living in it, and this kind of accountability doesn't always come in a thunderstorm or a crisis. Sometimes it comes slowly, a look in the mirror that lasts 1 second too long, a word that cuts deeper than it should, a quiet moment where you realize you're tired of your own excuses. These are sacred moments because they are invitations, not to shame, but to awakening, to stop living in the blur, and to step into the full light of ownership, of standing up and saying, "This is my life, this is my story, and I will not wait for someone else to fix it, because I was never created to be carried. I was created to rise, so stop playing small. Stop pretending you're powerless. Stop blaming everyone and everything. Look at the truth however it stings, however it shakes you, and let it do its work, let it refine you, because once you take hold of that truth, once you grasp the full weight of your accountability, you won't just change a little. You'll never be the same. Uncomfortable honesty doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't knock softly or dress itself up to sound kind. It comes in like a storm, sometimes quiet, sometimes violent, but it always tears something down, not because it wants to destroy you, but because it refuses to let you keep living behind walls that you've built out of fear. It strips away illusions. It exposes the things you've worked hard to hide, not just from others, but from yourself. That's what makes it so uncomfortable. It doesn't just speak the truth. It speaks your truth, the kind of truth that leaves nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. It's easy to love truth when it flatters you, when it affirms your dreams and tells you you're doing great. But that's not real honesty. Real honesty shows up when it costs something, when it hurts, when it hits the parts of you that you don't want anyone to see, when it confronts you in the middle of your comfort and says, "This is not who you're meant to be." It challenges your ego. It threatens your pride. It pulls back the curtain on the stories you've been telling yourself to feel okay. And that's where the real fight begins, because most people don't reject truth because they can't see it. They reject it because they do. They know. Deep down, they know when they've been selfish, when they've been lazy, when they've allowed fear to speak louder than purpose. But knowing something isn't enough. You have to face it. You have to look it in the eye and refuse to look away. And that's where uncomfortable honesty asks the most from you. It demands courage, not the loud kind that everyone claps for, but the quiet, brutal kind that sits with the truth until it burns away everything false. We've become experts at dressing up the truth. We say things like, "I'm just tired," instead of admitting we've been lazy. We say, "I need clarity," instead of admitting we're scared to commit. We say it's not the right time, instead of confessing we're procrastinating. We make these excuses sound wise, we make them sound mature. But they're still lies. We say them not because they're true, but because they're easier. They cost less. They let us hold on to comfort while pretending we're being thoughtful. But truth has no interest in your comfort. It's not here to protect your feelings. It's here to free your life. And if that feels like an attack, it's because we've spent so long confusing kindness with softness. Real kindness tells the truth. It doesn't enable your weakness. It doesn't pet your fear. It doesn't watch you destroy yourself slowly and call it love. Real kindness says, "I love you too much to let you stay here." And sometimes you have to say that to yourself. You have to stop waiting for someone else to speak the truth and start speaking it to your own soul. Even if your voice shakes, even if it breaks your heart, because you cannot grow in denial. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. Uncomfortable honesty isn't just about seeing your flaws. It's about being willing to admit them, to call them by name, to stop sugarcoating things that are killing your potential. It's the moment you say, "I haven't been giving my best," Or I've been blaming others for things I chose. Or I say I want more, but my actions don't match my words. These are hard things to say, but they're holy, too, because in that moment of raw truth, something sacred happens. Your illusions die, and your real life begins. But here's the part most people don't expect. Honesty doesn't just expose pain. It also reveals power. Once you strip away the excuses and the masks, you start to see the part of you that's been buried under all the pretending. The strong part, the resilient part, the part that's still standing even after all your mistakes. And that's the beauty of it. Honesty doesn't come to shame you. It comes to resurrect you, but only if you let it hurt first. It will hurt. Let's be clear about that. There's no version of this that feels easy. There's no clean, tidy version of honesty that doesn't cut somewhere. And that's why most people choose to live in half-truths. Because it's less painful in the moment, but the pain doesn't go away. It just festers. It grows in the dark, and one day it catches up to you when you're not ready, when you're too far down the road, and then it's not just uncomfortable. It's devastating. You think you're escaping pain by avoiding honesty, but really you're trading short-term comfort for long-term suffering. So it's better to face it now, to sit with the discomfort, to let the mirror speak, to stop defending yourself and start dealing with yourself. Say what needs to be said. Admit what needs to be admitted. Let the silence speak back to you when there's no one else in the room. And when it does, don't run. Don't distract yourself, don't numb it. Let it land, let it cut. Because that's the only way it can heal you. The people who live with clarity and purpose and strength, they aren't the ones who have never failed. They're the ones who have stopped pretending. They've looked at their own reflection without flinching. They've taken ownership. They've been honest when it cost them their pride, and that's why they're free. That's why they grow. That's why they lead, because nothing owns them anymore. Not fear, not guilt, not ego. They've faced it all, and now they have nothing to hide. You can have that too, but it won't come through wishing. It won't come through comfort. It will come through a fire of truth, a fire that burns off the lies you've lived in. And if you let it, if you stop running, if you welcome that fire instead of resisting it, you'll find that what's left after the burning is something stronger. Something real, something worthy. So tell the truth, not the pretty version, not the half version, not the version you think people will accept. Tell yourself the whole truth, even when it shakes you, even when it embarrasses you, even when it leaves you in tears, because truth won't kill you. It will save you, but only if you're willing to let it hurt first. There is a weight pressing against your chest that you've learned to ignore, a quiet pressure that whispers something you don't want to hear, not because it's a lie, but because it's more true than anything else you know. And that pressure is this: time is not waiting for you. Life is not slowing down to give you space to figure it out. The clock doesn't pause when you're confused. The days don't stretch just because you're not ready. Every moment that passes is a moment you won't get back, and whether you choose to act or not, your life is still moving forward. That's what grave urgency means. It's not panic, it's not chaos, it's not rushing for the sake of rushing. It's that deep, unshakable knowing that what you do now matters, because there won't always be a later. We live as if we've been promised more time. Like we can coast through today and make better choices tomorrow. Like we can delay hard conversations, delay growth, delay the pursuit of what matters most. And everything will still be waiting for us when we finally decide to care. But that's a lie, and it's a dangerous one, because the things that matter, your purpose, your relationships, your potential, those things don't sit idle forever. They wither in neglect. They drift. They disappear while you convince yourself you'll get to them eventually. But eventually is a fantasy. Eventually becomes never if you're not careful. Grave urgency doesn't mean you live in fear. It means you live awake. It means you understand that your time is sacred, and you refuse to treat it like it's disposable. It means that you look at your life with sober eyes and ask hard questions. What am I really doing with my time? What am I really becoming with these habits? What am I really chasing with this version of success I've accepted? And most importantly, what have I been putting off even though I know it matters? These aren't light questions. They're heavy, but they're the kind that strip away the fluff and force you to face the reality you've built. There are people walking around every day, alive in body but dead in will. They wake up, they go through the motions, they check the boxes, and they never stop to ask why. They've lost their sense of urgency, and so they settle. They shrink, they live small, even though something deep inside them knows they were made for more. But knowing isn't enough. You can know you're made for something more, and still waste your entire life waiting for the right time. And it won't come, because the right time isn't coming. What you have is now. What you've been given is this breath, this day, this chance, and it won't repeat itself. There's a lie people believe that says they need more motivation, or more confidence, or more clarity before they act. But that's not true. What they need is urgency. They need to feel the weight of how quickly this life moves. They need to understand that every delay has a cost. Every time you choose comfort over calling, distraction over discipline, fear over faith, you are not just standing still. You're losing ground. You're drifting further from who you were meant to be. And that should bother you. That should shake you awake. You don't get to rewind. You don't get to replay this season of your life once it's over. The conversations you're avoiding, the dreams you've shelved, the change you keep postponing, it's not neutral. It's erosion. And if you let enough time pass while doing nothing, you'll wake up one day surrounded by regret, realizing you didn't lose your potential overnight. You lost it day by day, in small choices that felt safe in the moment, but cost you everything in the end. There's a seriousness you need to carry in your soul. Not the kind that kills joy, but the kind that fuels purpose. The kind that doesn't let you get too comfortable for too long. The kind that reminds you that time is a gift and a responsibility, not just a resource. Every time you open your eyes, you're given another chance to build something meaningful, to become someone stronger, to love more deeply, to live more honestly. But you have to take it. You have to act like it matters. Because if you don't treat your life with urgency, no one else will. People will always offer you distractions. The world will constantly pull you toward things that waste your energy. You'll always have reasons to procrastinate, and you'll always have excuses ready to protect your fear. But if you want to live a life that actually matters, if you want to get to the end and know you didn't waste your shot, then you've got to move differently. You've got to rise with intention. You've got to start saying no to the things that don't build you, and yes to the things that scare you but grow you. And sometimes that means doing the hard thing today, not waiting for the mood to be right or the conditions to be perfect. Sometimes it means speaking when it would be easier to stay silent. It means showing up early, staying late, pushing through discomfort, and sacrificing the things that bring you quick pleasure for the things that bring lasting purpose. That's what urgency does. It makes you bold. It makes you disciplined. It forces you to prioritize what actually matters over what just feels good for now. This isn't about burnout or being busy for the sake of being busy. It's about living with the understanding that your time here is brief, and your impact is determined by what you choose to do with it. It's about refusing to let life happen to you, and instead deciding to take responsibility for how you show up in every season, in every space, in every single moment that's given to you. There are people out there right now who would give anything to have just one more chance, one more day, one more moment, and you have it right now, and what are you doing with it? Are you wasting it? Are you numbing it? Are you spending it like you'll have an endless supply of tomorrow? Or are you going to treat it like the gift it is and use it to become everything you were created to be? The urgency isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, to remind you that this matters, that you matter, that your life is not some meaningless drift. It is a divine assignment, but you have to choose it every day, in the big ways and the small. Not later, not someday. There comes a time when you can't afford to live in the gray anymore. A time when the fog of maybe and kind of and it depends has to be burned away by something stronger, something sharper. That thing is moral clarity. It's not trendy. It's not safe. It doesn't earn applause from the crowd, but it's what keeps you standing when the ground under you starts to shake. It's what holds you together when everything around you tries to pull you apart. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know what you believe, if you don't stand for something, then you'll fall for anything, and that's not poetic. That's real. There's a kind of strength that doesn't come from your personality, your past, or your position. It comes from your conviction, from that deep, immovable place in you that refuses to be swayed just because the crowd has changed its mind. Conviction doesn't care if it's popular. It doesn't wait to be validated. It doesn't ask for permission to speak the truth. It knows, and because it knows, it stands, quietly if it has to, fiercely if it must. But always it stands. Moral clarity doesn't come naturally. It comes from war, an internal war. A war between what's easy and what's right, between what's comfortable and what's true. It comes from walking through fire and refusing to compromise, even when your voice shakes, even when your hands tremble, even when you're the only one left holding the line. It's not that you didn't feel the pressure, you just didn't bow to it, and that's what makes it powerful, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to obey it. People will try to convince you that moral clarity is dangerous, that it's rigid, that it's judgmental, that the best thing you can do is just be open to everything, accept everything, embrace everything. But the truth is, not everything is worth accepting. Not everything is good. Not everything is healthy. And if you don't have the clarity to name what's evil, what's wrong, what's broken, then you have no hope of standing for what's good, what's right, what's healing. You can't fix what you won't face. You can't redeem what you refuse to call out. So moral clarity starts with the courage to tell the truth. Even when it's not convenient, we live in a world that rewards compromise, a world that calls compromise tolerance, and silence wisdom, and apathy kindness. But there's nothing kind about letting people walk into destruction while you stay quiet just to keep the peace. There's nothing loving about shrinking back from truth while the people around you are being eaten alive by lies. At some point, you have to choose. You have to decide that you'd rather be hated for standing than loved for blending in. Because if your conviction can be bought with approval, it was never conviction to begin with, it was preference dressed up in principle. The people who change the world, the people who leave a mark, the people who live with meaning, they are not the ones who float. They are not the ones who follow every new wind. They are the ones who plant their feet in the ground and say, "This is what I know to be true." And they don't say it arrogantly. They say it humbly, but they say it clearly, and the clarity cuts through the noise. It breaks chains. It sets people free. Because there's something deeply powerful about a life that doesn't waver every time culture shifts, every time pressure mounts, every time the spotlight hits. That kind of life carries weight. That kind of life speaks before it even opens its mouth. But you don't get that kind of life without work, without wrestling, without the long nights of asking hard questions and facing ugly truths. You don't get it without deciding, again and again, that you'd rather be faithful than famous, that you'd rather live with integrity than live for applause, and that means saying no when everyone else is saying yes. It means standing still when the crowd is running off a cliff. It means calling out your own hypocrisy before you ever point at anyone else's. It means choosing the narrow path when the wide road looks easier, safer, faster. There is a loneliness to moral clarity. You will lose things. People will misunderstand you. Some will walk away, and you'll be tempted to soften your stance just to keep them close. But if you trade truth for companionship, you'll end up surrounded but empty, and that's not worth it. Because peace that costs your principles is not peace. It's surrender, and eventually it turns into bitterness, into regret, into a quiet ache that says, "I knew better, but I was too afraid to speak." Conviction means speaking even when your voice shakes. It means living clean even when no one's watching. It means not just knowing what's right, but doing what's right, consistently, stubbornly, quietly. And the people around you may not thank you for it. They may not even notice, but you will know, and that knowing will steady your soul when everything else tries to take you off course. You cannot borrow conviction. You cannot fake it. You have to build it, brick by brick, choice by choice, saying no to the easy lie, saying yes to the hard truth, and over time that kind of life becomes unshakable, not because it's loud, but because it's grounded. And when the winds of change come, and they will come, it won't blow over, it will hold, because it wasn't built on the sand of opinion. It was built on the rock of truth. So let the world change its mind. Let the crowd shift direction. You don't have to follow. You don't have to blend in. You weren't made for that. You were made to stand, to speak, to live with clarity and with fire, not the fire of anger. The fire of truth, the fire of conviction, the fire that lights a path, even when it's dark. And maybe, just maybe, that fire will light the way for someone else too. There comes a point where the noise around you is so loud, you can't hear yourself think. Not really. You move through the days doing what's expected, saying what sounds right, checking boxes you didn't even choose. You wear a version of yourself that's polished enough to be accepted, but quiet enough not to be noticed too deeply. And all the while, something inside you is stirring, not screaming, not demanding, just stirring, quietly asking, is this all there is? That's where it starts, the call to inner awakening. It doesn't come like thunder. It comes like a whisper, and you can ignore it for a while. You can drown it out with busyness, with entertainment, with shallow affirmations and easy answers, but it won't go away, because it's not asking you to do more. It's asking you to wake up. To wake up means to see what you've been unwilling to face, to shake yourself out of autopilot, to realize that just because something is normal doesn't mean it's right, and just because something is easy doesn't mean it's true. We live in a culture that teaches us how to succeed before it teaches us how to be still. We are trained to be productive before we are taught how to be present. But productivity without awareness is just motion without meaning. And being busy isn't the same thing as being alive. Inner awakening is about learning to live from the inside out, not the outside in. It's about getting honest enough to admit that you've been driven by fear more than purpose, that you've been shaped by other people's expectations more than your own convictions, that you've performed roles so well you've forgotten who you are without them. And this isn't about shame, it's about clarity. It's about seeing that the version of you that plays it safe, that stays quiet, that tries to be enough by doing more, it's not the real you. It's the survival you, and waking up means choosing to no longer let the survival version lead. But awakening costs something. It always does. It costs comfort. It costs denial. It costs the illusion of control. Because when you wake up, you can't unsee what you now know. You can't pretend that your excuses are noble. You can't hide behind your schedule or your title or your image. You have to look at yourself, all of yourself, and ask, what am I doing with this life I've been given? Not what am I achieving, not how am I being perceived, but what am I actually becoming? And that kind of question cuts deep. It cuts through the fake peace you've been living with. It disrupts the distractions you've used to keep your soul quiet, and it invites you into something uncomfortable, something raw, a place where you're no longer content to live a half-life, a place where you start to crave truth more than validation, presence more than performance, wholeness more than image, and from that place something sacred begins to take shape. Not outside of you, but within you, because awakening doesn't start with a breakthrough in your circumstances. It starts with a shift in your awareness, a decision to stop blaming everything around you and start taking responsibility for what's happening in you. It means recognizing that the world doesn't need a more polished version of you. It needs a more present version of you. It means choosing depth over ease, integrity over applause, soul over surface. This kind of awakening isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's not for show. It's quiet. It's personal, it's often painful, but it's real, and you'll know it's happening when the things that used to satisfy you start to feel hollow. When the relationships that were built on convenience start to feel distant. When the distractions you used to love no longer silence the ache. That ache is not a weakness. It's an invitation. It's your soul knocking, asking to be heard. And if you're honest, you'll hear it, not because it shouts, but because it speaks a language deeper than words. It speaks through the restlessness in your chest, through the tears you can't explain, through the longing you feel in quiet moments when no one is watching. It speaks through your desire to live with meaning, even if you don't yet know what that means. And the question it asks is simple: will you answer? To answer doesn't mean you have everything figured out. It doesn't mean you suddenly know your path, your calling, your grand purpose. It means you stop pretending you're fine when you're not. It means you make room for silence, for reflection, for truth. It means you sit in the tension without rushing to escape it. It means you become willing to be undone, not because you're broken, but because you're being rebuilt. There is a version of you that is whole. Not perfect, but whole, rooted, grounded, alive. That version isn't built by striving. It's uncovered by surrender. It's not something you achieve. It's something you return to, because it's always been there, beneath the fear, beneath the shame, beneath the noise. Waiting for you to stop numbing and start listening. Waiting for you to stop running and start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And that's what inner awakening really is. A remembering, a coming home to your truest self, the part of you that's not defined by what you do or what you have or what people think. The part of you that knows how to love deeply, how to stand firmly, how to live fully. But that self can't rise until you let the false self die. The self that lives for approval. The self that hides behind performance. The self that is terrified of silence, because silence makes you face what you've been avoiding. But in that silence you find strength, in that surrender you find clarity, and in that awakening you find something the world can't give and can never take away. A soul that is alive, awake, anchored in truth, ready to live, not just exist. And if you let that call grow louder than your fear, louder than your pride, louder than your excuses, you'll start to see that the life you've been waiting for isn't out there somewhere. It's within you, waiting to be lived.